This is Batman, and in this anime you're going to follow the life of a genius who is very intelligent and very powerful. At the start of this story, we see him talking on the phone, asking why he can't spend the money he earned. The man on the other end of the line, totally ignoring his question, says random things about life, saying that beggars should live on the street. The boy then asks what he's getting at, and the man replies that no, he can't withdraw coins from an ATM. Annoyed, the boy concludes that for the bank, any amount less than 1,000 yen is not money, so his 430 yen don't exist. Nice, the hero of this story, is currently on the phone in a bank queue. And while he's talking to the attendant, a girl appears in the background with a rumbling tummy, and on hearing this, the man on the phone says that Radmeshin is hungry. Suddenly, a bullet is fired, and a man wearing an oak-headed mask emerges with a pistol pointed upward. Everyone on the bench ducks, except Nice and the girl next to him. The scene then cuts away, and we see that the whole matter with the bandits has been resolved. All thanks to Nice, who has taken control of the whole situation. Later, Nice rushes into a bar, calling the bartender his boss. He has rented a table to do business. At the bar we meet a man with blonde hair, who is wearing glasses and drinking from a canteen. He mocks Nice, asking if he's managed to get his little money out of the bank, but in the background, another man wearing an eye patch scolds Rajime for walking while she eats, saying she'll be sick. The blonde boy calls him doctor and pokes Nice again, saying that at least the doctor isn't a detective who only has 300 yen in his bank account. Rajime sits down in front of the barman and orders some hot milk, spending the last of Nice's yen. Just then a girl called Kaneko appears and says she has 2 jobs for them that pay very well. Murasaki, the man who was on the phone earlier, is also in the bar, sitting at Nice's rented table, and the first job they have to do is to find the culprit behind the kidnappings of schoolgirls in the neighborhood. Another job is offered by a millionaire family, the Toyosaki family. The head of the family has died, and only he knew the secret to opening the safe. Several people are currently trying to rob the safe, so it's their job to protect the safe and catch the thieves. Meanwhile, Blondie, now introduced as Birthday, and the doctor are in a car. The doctor asks him not to eat in his car, so he puts his piece of chicken in the glove compartment, saying that if he's not going to eat it now, he has to save it for later, because wasting it is a bad thing. Inside the glove compartment, there was also an egg, which had been stored there for so long that it had cooked, and their mission is to protect a girl who knows something she shouldn't, and this mission pays very well. Hajime, Nice, and Murasaki are sitting at the bar, looking at their job. The one with the Toyosaki family pays 10 times more than any other, and Kaneko says that whoever is trying to steal the safe has hired a power user, and they don't know what his responsibility is. They get into a standoff over which mission to do, as Nice wants to do the job of arresting the kidnapper, and Murasaki wants to protect the safe. The two start arguing. Murasaki then leaves, saying that if he wants to do this job that pays a pittance, let him do it, and then Nice and Hajime are left with another mission. The next day, Nice takes to the streets to look for information about the missing girls. He talks to the friends of Mickey, one of the missing girls. They tell him that she recently quit her job and that she was doing something that made a lot of money, probably Homilo Infant. As for Murasaki's mission, the contractors ask if he alone will solve this case, since agents always work in pairs. He then says that some changes have taken place, which is why he doesn't have a double. Murasaki asks his contractors if they've ever tried to force the lock, and the maid says that the safe is modified, and the moment anyone tries to break into it without using a password, the contents of the safe will be set on fire. Meanwhile, Nice is on a boat in the alley, and sitting in front of him is a motionless man in green clothes, and behind him is a dancing tiger doll. Nice opens his mouth talking about the 7 schoolgirls who have disappeared, but before he can finish his sentence, the man completes it for him, saying that none of them have a problem with money. Nice then asks for information, putting some coins into the sleeve of the man's kimono. He then tells him a completely unexpected and random piece of information, and then throws the pile of money on the ground, saying that he can't sell such important information for so little money. Just then, that white-haired man with the purple tips appears with a few notes of money in his hand. He asks the informant if that amount is enough, and the man says that apparently someone witnessed one of the kidnappings and clearly heard someone say that that bitch knew about the deal. After that, the white-haired man tells Nice that he's from the police and that they're the ones who did the work, and the man tells Nice that he'll have to pay for the 30,000 yen he spent to find out the information, and leaves to pay the bill. Nice, now alone at the table, uses his genius brain, and ends up realizing that his mission is connected to the mission that the doctor and the blonde are doing. Yes, their mission is to protect a girl who knows too much. Nice quickly calls the blonde, asking if the girl is a schoolgirl. They say she's a schoolgirl studying at a boarding school. Her name is Sugar, and she's in her 4th year at the girls' boarding school. Suddenly, the car in which they were campervanning is thrown into the air and into the building in front of them. The man with supernatural physical strength lifts a gigantic stone from his hands and hurls it into the girl's room. He goes into his room and asks if the girl's name is Sugar. Meanwhile, the policeman is in a library talking to Gashuki. The old man says that there are many things they don't know about yet, so he's trying to learn as much as possible by reading some books in the hope that it will help him deal with a certain case. Returning to Sugar, she tells a super powerful man a certain code. The man still needs to make sure everything is right and tries to grab the girl, but before he can touch her, a bolt of lightning appears between the two of them, and the one doing it is the blonde man, who is shooting sparks around his body while holding a stun gun. The man in red recognizes him as another person with superpower. Quickly, the man swipes a rock, which forces the blonde boy to back away. Soon afterwards, the super strong man gets into a car. He calls someone and says that he's got the information and can now infiltrate the castle. Everyone except Murasaki is now at the bar, including Sugar, but Kaneka even offers food, and everyone is surprised, since it's unusual for her to offer food to people she's just met. Nacy asks Sugar what the man wanted, and she says it was a code, but she doesn't know what for, and that she only heard it by chance. On the phone, the doctor and Murasaki talk about sleepwalking, saying that if something causes stress, it's possible that she'll reveal it in her sleep. In short, Sugar has listened to the numbers of the head of the Toyosaki family, who died in his sleep. Kaneka quickly links this mission to that of the millionaire's family safe, which Murasaki went to investigate. He then takes the cell phone from the radio and says that there is only one mission, the same case, and the kidnapped victims all had an affair with the head of the Toyosaki family, who mumbled the numbers from the safe in his sleep. Toyosaki's son is furious to learn that his father dates schoolgirls, but his housemaid tells him to be strong, revealing that she also wears a uniform, and that whenever he wants, she can wear a schoolgirl uniform. The son of the head of the family shouts with all his might that this isn't necessary, and Murasaki quickly jumps towards them, knocking everyone away from the window, which has been smashed to pieces by a stone thrown at it. The super strong man appears again, revealing that his power is gravity, and everything he touches is practically weightless to him. He throws a statue at Murasaki, which completely shatters before hitting him. Further away, several thieves are observing the situation. The doctor and the blonde boy appear on the scene to defeat them all, finally showing off the doctor's special ability. Basically, as soon as he takes out his eye patch, he can see his enemy's muscles, and with his metal arms and hands, he can hit his enemy's most sensitive spot. Nacy also takes action, appearing behind the man who manipulates gravity. The man lifts a truck with both hands to throw at Murasaki, but before he acts, the man tries to talk him down, saying that they are all the chosen ones who use their powers to make money, taking advantage of the weak. However, Nacy completely disagrees with this view, and after he hears all this, he becomes very angry. He puts on his headphones while asking if he can see the sound. Then heavy metal begins to play in the background, and with a snap of his fingers, he lunges forward and punches the man who was standing meters away. The man falls to his knees and is stunned by Nacy's power. A few days later, we see the boy with shock power in a square performing magic for some girls, and when he goes to show the end of his magic, an explosion happens in a building behind him, which totally takes the focus off his little flag. As a result, he ends up being taken into custody by the police. In the bar, unaware of what happened, everyone starts to create theories about what happened to the blonde boy. Then Kaneko opens up and says that he is suspected of causing a terrorist attack. Suddenly, two schoolboys walk into the bar looking for the Hamatora group. Kaneko introduces herself as the negotiator, while Nacy and Hajime order a rib sandwich to eat, even though they don't know how they're going to pay for it. Then the scene cuts to Nacy introducing himself to his classmates, and getting back to the case of these two students. They are looking for their school art teacher, Kitazawa-sensei, who disappeared 3 days ago, and because so little time has passed, the police say they can't act yet. The young people try to argue that their teacher would never disappear without good reason, but the police wouldn't listen. Murasaki is reluctant to accept, as this job certainly won't pay well. The students offer him a piggy bank from their savings, which Nacy accepts without a second thought. Now it's Murasaki who shows up at school, with all the girls around him complimenting his look. Murasaki finds this work annoying. In the hall, Nacy sees a rush in the corridors, and his contractors say it happens every day. It's all because of the fried rib burger they serve, which is delicious. Unfortunately, the school only sells 10 a day, and upon hearing this, Nacy immediately jumped out of the window into the courtyard and used his power to almost teleport there. Unfortunately, he only had 100 yen, and the sandwich cost 150. After lunch, Nacy shows that he is very intelligent by answering an exercise perfectly, and when one of his classmates compliments him, he notices that his cell phone is open to something called reverse sight, and Nacy asks what it's for. Meanwhile, on the other side of the screen, Murasaki asks a schoolgirl to fix the Wi-Fi that's been cut on her computer, and he compliments her, saying that she's the best at computer science. He approaches her, asking if she was the one who created that website that everyone is using. The embarrassed schoolgirl says she tried to hide it from her teachers. Then Murasaki tells her that he can't log in and asks for her help. Soon after, we discover that the reverse site is a place for the students of this school to say things they wouldn't say in public. Meanwhile, we see that the blonde boy is already back at the bar, and the one who got him out was the doctor, who was hoping to hear at least a thank you, but heard nothing. At the site, Nacy discovers that the boy who hired him is bullied, and has even thought about killing himself several times. He didn't tell anyone about it, because he received threats, and if he said anything, they could end up tormenting his friend. Professor Kitazawa was the only one who noticed his strong desire to kill himself, and helped him, but Nacy scolds the boy, saying that he can't depend on his teacher for the rest of his life. This infuriates the boy for a moment, but they are interrupted by Murasaki, saying that there is a body inside a sandwich maker. Artie, the policeman with the purple lock, is also there. He asks Nacy and Murasaki to identify the body, and the victim is indeed Kitazawa, who was found along with other victims with their brains removed. All the victims were people who possessed power, and who also attended the Facultas Academy, which in this case is the name of the academy that everyone with supernatural powers attended. Police officer Artie then reveals to Nacy and Murasaki that he is getting quite a headache from the constant cases of people with supernatural powers being killed. He has no clue who caused these terrorist attacks, and on hearing this, Nacy asks Artie to be careful. A few days later, at the professor's wake, the girl called Ray cries under his coffin, while her friend observes the situation motionless. Murasaki and Nacy were also there, and the wake was crowded, where some co-workers talk about how Professor Kitagawa was a good person, that he didn't deserve to die. Nacy lifts a cell phone out of a plastic bag to show Murasaki. He says that he collected it at the crime scene inside a refrigerator, so this cell phone is no good anymore. Murasaki complains that Artie will get angry again, but Nacy says that that strange app also seems to be downloaded on the teacher's cell phone. Murasaki tells them to drop the case. After all, they've already discovered the teacher's whereabouts. However, Nacy believes that the boy needs help to move on, otherwise he could end up killing himself. That's why he wants to find out what really happened, so that the boy can rest easy. And while Nacy says he's determined to go all the way in this case, we see some flashbacks of him from the time he attended the Facultas Academy. There, the children's exercise was monitored, and everyone received a real-time rating. Children with low scores were sent away, but the Nacy in front of everyone had a perfect score in everything. After the flashbacks, we see Nacy going again to the man in the green clothes, who hands him some photos of students bullying Tell. It turns out that Kitazawa took these photos to the principal, and the 5 students who committed this bullying were expelled. The man in the green clothes is eating a sandwich, and Nacy asks him for a bite, but the man charges 700 yen for just one bite. Nacy now believes that there is something strange about the photos, since 5 students have been expelled, and there are more than 5 students in the photo. He wonders who took the photos, because from the angle the photo was taken, there is probably a 6th person involved in this. He discovers that the leader who posted that photo always used the same IP address. Nacy easily tracked him down and discovered that he belonged to Professor Kitazawa, who in this case was the ringleader behind the bullying. And after a little investigation into what Kitazawa used to do, Nacy discovered that Kitazawa had the power to make his words come true. So he wrote wrote the scenes of bullying as heroic and grandiose fact. His skill as a minimum was realism, and Kitazawa wanted to expel students to increase his reputation. He also made money on the internet by posting about his students' misfortunes and how he created them himself, making his life perfect. Nacy reveals all this to Tu, and he starts to feel sick and vomit. Nacy shows them the necessary evidence. Now the students must make a decision. Tu then talks to Kitazawa, revealing that even after everything, he's still happy about all the times the teacher has helped him. Kitazawa agrees, saying that there's nothing wrong with that and that no one can control their feeling. He just asks Tu to be honest with himself. And while the Hamatora group is examining the photos, they realize that in every place in the photos there was an explosion, and in all there were 6 attacks, plus there are 7 photos. And the only place there wasn't an explosion was at the school. At night, Tu and Rei are walking around the school. Because Tu wants to say something to Kitazawa, they see a time bomb and hear a voice coming from the speaker. When they look up, they see Kojima, one of the expelled boys, who blames Tu for the hell he's living in as an outlaw. Kojima doesn't see anything wrong, as he only did what the others did, but now his reputation is destroyed, and he wants to make it all go away. Nice arrives saying that the idiot had become a terrorist for such a futile reason. Then Kojima reveals that he is also a superpower user, having the power of temporal acceleration. Nice runs to stop the bomb and bumps into someone with long white hair. He apologizes and moves on, quickly picking up the bomb to defuse it. Kitazawa grabs it out of his hand and throws it into the air. The bomb then explodes in the sky, and when he sees that it hasn't succeeded, he shows his body wrapped in bombs and asks everyone to stay away. Nice then decides to ask Murasaki to use the garbage exit. He sees the boys doing this at lunch to get there quickly, and in an instant Murasaki throws a punch at Kojima's face, who is thrown backward, and then has his stopwatch broken. The boy starts mumbling that it wasn't his fault, and Murasaki says he's disgusted by people like him who choose to join in this kind of situation and don't face their problems head on. In the end, Nice hands Teo a bat. They are in front of Kitazawa's ashes, and there Teo thanks the professor for his help, but then breaks the professor's picture with the bat. He completely breaks his memorial, while cursing Kitazawa with a smile on his face. Finally, in a conversation between Art, Gatsuki, and another investigator, we discover that 2 people with superpowers that the Hamator group faced were not born with those powers. They ask if it's possible for super-powered people to exist who weren't born with their ability, and if it's possible to implant an ability in someone. They come to the conclusion that to do this, they would need the brain of someone with superpower. Then, at the end of the episode, it is revealed that a white-haired man has several shelves of preserved human brains, which he treats as if they were his children. After these events, we see that Art is talking to another agent. They discuss those who have powers and have disappeared, and Art sees this as progress in his work, since he now knows the serial killer's motivation, which in this case is to remove the brains of those who have superpowers in order to create new ones. The old man realizes that this serial killer is selling tickets to success, since ordinary people would have the chance to get superpowers, but Art doesn't believe that this is being done for anyone's benefit. Rather, it's all being done to create monsters who will wreak havoc on society. On the other side of the screen, we see Aitu Shouko, a woman from the Youth Health, Protection, and Equality Association. She is looking for the Hamatora group, and the job she wants to apply for is to investigate the Facultas Academy, a school that trains people who have potential superpowers. The aim of the academy is to develop their abilities, with promises of high positions in adulthood, ensuring that these people live as winners. Nai wonders why Aitu wants the investigation, since she must be very well informed about everything that happens there. She says she wants to know if there are any scandals within the academy. Aitu comments on the injustice of privileging children who are born with superpowers, and those who are just discarded because they weren't born with any particular ability. And since high-ranking people are involved in the formation of the academies, if any special information was leaked, it would be quickly covered up. But if there was a scandal, the association could put the academy out of business. Aitu comments that Nai-C, being someone who graduated with excellent grades from that academy, absolutely refuses to get his rights and benefits, and she knows that he must have a motive behind it. Finally, she says that their reward will be generous. She gives them an amount in advance, and says that if all goes well, she'll triple the final amount. Kaneko accepts the mission for them, as they owe the bar a lot of money. In the car, Aitu is on the phone, and the man next to her asks if the Hamatoras can be trusted, and she has reason enough to believe that they can, since Murasaki graduated with the second highest score since the academy was founded, and the first person is a plus, but their skills are so different that they didn't even make the grade. The man on the other end of the call asks if Aitu is still trying to find Takahiro, and she says she hasn't heard from him since the day before, but she believes he must be at a friend's house again. Murasaki leaves to investigate the surroundings and the people who work at the Facultas Academy. Meanwhile, Nacy stayed at the bar cleaning up. The master tells him to stop fidgeting and says that it's hard to believe that he has the power of super speed, but Nacy retorts by saying that he shouldn't use his ability unnecessarily, and then Hajime almost drops his spoon with food, but Nacy promptly catches it in mid-air with his power. He offers her the food, but she refuses, and the master, seeing this, says that God must be sorry for having given him this gift. Nacy leaves with the excuse that he's going to help Murasaki, and that he's curious to know why that woman is taking such measures. At that moment, the master sees that the tap isn't running. The master tries to remember the warning he received about the water cut off, and meanwhile in the sewers, we see that a pipe has been broken by a huge purple creature that was walking down there. On the other side of the screen, as Gatsuki walks through the association, Art finds some worrying records and leaves. He then meets Moral in a white room illuminated by several torches to clear up some doubt. He tells him that a drug called Namecross was found in the nervous system of the suspect with the inactive power, and that it was imported into Japan from abroad. However, the association bought this drug in large quantities, and its entire stock was transferred to a single individual. Art deduces that this individual is Professor Moral. The association denies any involvement, but Moral confirms it, saying that there is a man in the association who supports his work, and who always decides to help him, and so a separate investigation must be conducted. But Art isn't there to talk about that alone. He asks Moral what research is being done with this drug. His research deals with those who have inactive power, but he says that there is nothing to link him to the people who have recently received superpowers in the city. The next question in the interrogation is what led him to research people who have abilities, but they are inactive. Moral then comments that it's for people's equality, and as soon as he starts talking, the flames that were yellow before turn green. The atmosphere changes and he continues to speak, saying that the unequal treatment between those who have powers and those who don't is something he doesn't feel comfortable with, and the only way to change all this is to give everyone the same ability. Art thinks this is selfish thinking, and Moral agrees. Then the torches change from green to purple, and Moral says that whoever has the power to kill another human being is a strong man. Weak men, crimelings, despise murder because they have no power. The Moral envies murderers who are brave enough to cross the boundaries of society, and this is not limited to murderers. The weak can't cross a line, and they hate those who can. Art begins to get restless, and the Moral continues to tell him how he believes murderers are superior. Art then tries to end the interrogation with a slogan, but he doesn't succeed, and the Moral continues and says that a world that strengthens the weak will be very beautiful, a splendid place where everyone can cross that line. As he speaks, the Moral seems happy and gets more and more excited. His eye spirals, and each time it appears, Art feels more and more tired and even begins to sweat. He says he won't stay in the room any longer and starts to leave, but then it is revealed that Art is one of those Moral wants to save. At this point, the flames start to burn an incandescent red, and Moral says that he knows that Art attended the Facultas Academy, and thanks to his superior intellect he managed to graduate, but never manifested any skills. The Moral begins to irritate Art with some invasive questions, which Art himself asks him to stop. Moral continues his questions, saying that if everyone has powers, why doesn't he? Art? He says that Art envies the others, and that if he had power he would kill them, and that makes Art angry. He grabs Moral by the collar, but the man tells Art to look at himself. Art loosens his shirt, and the flames return to their natural color. He leaves and says he'll be back with the arrest warrant, leaving Moral alone in the room. Meanwhile, at the association meeting, a purple, muscular monster comes out of a manhole. Everyone freaks out, and Ado in a phone call blames the Faculty Academy, even though there is no proof. His aim is to create a scandal, rather than just discover one. Murasaki faces the monster, which holds up a road sign and throws it at him. Murasaki grabs the sign with his hands, then fires several attacks at the monster. From afar, Nice stands on top of a wrecked car, observing the situation. When the police sirens start to sound, Ado comes out of hiding and shouts to the Hamatora group that they need to capture this creature. The monster turns to her and calls her mother, revealing that this monster is actually her son, Takahiro. The police shoot at him, and he flees into the sewer. Art then receives a call from Moral. He tells him about the day a schoolboy came to him for advice. The young man was worried that he had no skills and was not well accepted by his mother. Moral says that if he could help this group, he would certainly save them from the chains of weakness. However, if the individual doesn't have the aptitude to accept a superpower, he will end up becoming a monster rather than a person with powers. After hearing this, Art swears to arrest Moral. After that, Ito ends up being driven away in a police car. She says she only wanted her son's good, but Nice tells her off, saying that she made her son think he was a loser, despising him just because he didn't have superpowers. And that's why Nice believes she's not a good mother at all. On the other side of the screen, the blonde guy is trying to make a quick buck as a fortune teller. He sets up a fortune-telling booth with a doctor behind him, talking in his ear where people are feeling uncomfortable. He proves to be a great charlatan, until the master puts him out of business by revealing that it's all just a scam. At the cafe, Kiriniko is worried about Nice and Murasaki. It turns out that everyone has seen a video of the creature in Outbreak of Rage, and Hajime, upon seeing the video, says that she empathizes with the monster, saying that she understands how it feels. Art deduces that Takahiro is looking for human voices to get out of the sewers, so he hatches a plan to get him into his trap and captured. Art doesn't consider him a monster, but a victim. Unfortunately, his plan is unsuccessful, and Takahiro tears through the capture nets until Nice appears, and he knows that Takahiro's motive in seeking out large crowds is to show that he has surpassed those who have superpower. Nice then manages to render him immobile, and obviously he doesn't kill him. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, gasoline is thrown everywhere. Moral then lights a lighter and sets fire to everything. He then reveals that the #1 genius at the college academy is Nice, but that he hasn't fully graduated and his existence isn't classified. Moral sets fire to the whole place, burning any evidence. The police investigate the underground tunnels that the outsider, which in this case is what the police have come to call Takahiro, was walking through, and there they discover a passage that leads to the sewer. In a hotel room, a young blonde named Ronin is holding a tablet while lying in bed, and a brute named Tree is intently watching a public speech. Ronin uses her power to locate a sniper using her device. They go to the location, and Tree takes his gun and knocks him out. Ronin reveals that she was hired by the sniper's target to be his secret bodyguard, and she only found out because she has the same power to predict 10 minutes into the future with her tablet. On the other side of the screen, we discover that the Hamatora group has been asked to record a commercial for the minimum agency. All this because of the Outsider viral video. Everyone's eyes were on Yokohama, so to hide the whole affair, they had to make this announcement. In the plot of the ad, Takahiro wants to clean the bathroom of the beautiful maiden Kaneko, who feels violated by a stranger trying to clean her private place. She says that if this happens, she'll never be able to get married again. Then Sonic and Dayton, the evil doctor, Thunderman, and Four Eyes, the four warriors who protect Yokohama, enter the scene. After the commercial airs, Urasaki is inconsolable in the cafe, complaining about the poor performance of everyone who wasn't clear with the audience. He says that they all needed to convey reassurance, but what annoys him most is the fact that his name to the public is Four Eye. Meanwhile, the doctor is at his real job as a doctor, carrying out a general checkup on a lady who is going to have eye. On the other side of the screen, we see Art asking Honen and Tree for help with a particular case. Tree is sitting at a table next to Honen, reading a manga, and Honen complains about it. Meanwhile, our hero's commercial is starting to become popular and is in the top 10, and the first video in the ranking is of a recent gallant perfumer. Suddenly, the cafe's phone rings, and their job is to go to a retirement home. Murasaki instantly refuses. On the other side of the screen, Honan, waiting to embark on a trip, realizes that her tablet case has been swapped with someone else. Meanwhile, Art is investigating a case in which several teenagers around the age of 15 have received a gun by email along with a letter. They are told to rob a convenience or commit insurrection, otherwise they will end up dead. Young people who have never had a trace of rebellion end up being arrested for illegally carrying weapons, or for other offenses they have committed by obtaining a weapon. Meanwhile, Tree is talking to one of the airport attendants about the swapped suitcase, until out of nowhere he hears Honan's screams, and when he looks back, he sees that she is being taken away and put into a van, and no matter how hard he tries, Tree can't get there before the van leaves. Now Art and Nice are talking about the incidents with teenagers over the last 3 or 2 days, and they come to the conclusion that the next incident will happen the next day at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Nice changes the subject for a moment, asking why the police have started calling Takahiro an outsider. He also asks where Takahiro got his powers from, since there's no way he could have done it on his own, but Art doesn't want to talk about morale with Nice. Now Honan inside the van discovers that she has a tracker in her changed suitcase. She then mocks the people who are kidnapping her. At that moment, Tree appears in the car of the lady who was with the doctor. They try to reach the van, and the lady, even though she's taking part in this action movie, still hopes to catch her flight in time. Tree jumps on top of the van and says a prayer asking for forgiveness for the acts he is about to commit. His superpower is then activated, and he turns into a superhuman beast, intelligent and powerful. He rips the roof off the van, easily traps the kidnappers, and saves Ronan. Now in the cafe, everyone is talking about the strange email, and when they least expect it, Kaneko also receives one of these strange emails. The email simply asked if she wanted a gun or not, and she immediately shows it to everyone. The scene quickly switches to Nisa, who is again in that nozzle, where the man in the green clothes, who calls himself Mao, always sells him important information. Their Mao explains a few things, and Nisa goes straight to the Art to say that there is something in common with the children who received the email and were arrested. They all used the same video sharing site. He says that in the last most accessed video, there is a coded message converted to the sound of a mosquito, and he says that that email address is inserted into the video at such a high frequency that only children can hear it, which makes the police's job more difficult. And behind the footage is Moral. In front of him is the artist of the video, complaining that he didn't know his video would involve criminal act. A man who is beautiful on camera is in reality just a normal guy with a power of beauty. Moral tells the man that he's not committing crimes, since he only offered the gun, and that the people who accepted the guns and used them to commit criminal acts are wrong. And when the man says he's going to the police, Moral kills him in cold blood with a pistol. On the other side of the screen, we see Honey discovering that the suitcase she had with her actually contained smuggled gun part, which would be reassembled and sent by email. Now she has her tablet in her hands again. Art asks Honey to predict the future in 10 minutes time with her tablet, especially in busy areas such as attraction. She uses her powers of analysis to do this, and discovers that the location will be Cosmoland, an amusement park. The criminals will be 15-year-old teenagers, positioned with firearms. Art quickly calls the police, who begin to detain the children. Meanwhile, Moral appears in the room with a chainsaw, and while all this is going on, Nice comments that this attack is most likely just a game. At the end of that day, we see that a boy has started to catch a cold from being out so late. Moral then gives him his coat and leaves without saying anything, after which Moral also starts to catch a cold, showing that he too is human. Now in a shopping mall, we see that there's a lottery going on with various prizes, and Hajime wants to win hamburgers, so she tries the roulette wheel. In the meantime, she wins a stay in the hot spring. At the cafe, everyone is arguing about who's going on the trip, and Blondie does everything he can to try to go. All this while he's hitting on Ronan, saying he'd love to see her naked. Kaneko explains to everyone that it's Hajime who will choose who goes with her, and also says that only 4 people can go. She also says that it's extremely unethical for boys and girls to stay in the same room. Meanwhile, the blonde boy keeps hitting on Ronan, and she asks Tree to start from the middle, so he does, spreading his legs in the air, but he stops when the doctor says that they have a mission to do. Meanwhile, Nice and Murasaki are on another mission, going to the house of a witch who asks them to follow her boyfriend, as she suspects he is attracting her. Nice realizes that she has several boyfriends, and is uninterested in the case. But when the woman says that her boyfriend is a masseur and is in the hot spring, he accepts. In a grocery store, Art is shopping while talking to Gasuk. Gasuk asks how he's doing with the serial killer case, and Art says it's difficult because his opponent is a genius. The old man then asks if that's why he released Ronan and Tree into the hot springs, and Art says yes. However, the old man says that it's Art himself who should relax, and while they're talking, a man tries to steal a magazine, so the old man quickly stops him and says meanwhile everyone is in the hotel with a hot spring that's very famous throughout the city. Everyone from Hamader is in there, with the girls and even Ray enjoying themselves. Ray is working there, and so is her friend Tell. However, this place is suddenly invaded by some men, and all this happens while the girls are changing to bathe in the hot water. But the men don't care about the women, they really only care about the men, and so they tell all the women to get dressed and leave. In the men's ward, each enemy is quickly defeated, and suddenly the blonde and the doctor appear to help. They meet an enemy who has a special power, and he says he's going to defeat them all right now. He takes off his shirt and starts flexing it several times, so that his sweat comes out and mixes with the steam inside. No one knew about his power, so they just waited to see what would happen. However, what they didn't know was that the steam from his sweat could seduce anyone. The blonde, doubting his ability, approaches the man, but he falls for the effect and is dying to grab his banana. The doctor tries to stop him, but he ends up falling for the same effect. The frightened others grab the two of them and run, but the man says there's no point in running, as his steam will spread throughout the building. Meanwhile, outside the building, Art and Gatsuki, together with other policemen, find the girls sitting down, and Art wonders if the hostages have been released. Still inside the building, the Hamatora girls, including Honey and Ray, are hiding. Honey says that for their pride as women, they should take revenge on the men inside, because they didn't want to see them naked, and even called them filthy. Hajime agrees, as she is actually determined to save the luxury dinner. She hits one of the men in the corridor, and Honey uses her power to predict the future inside the building to find out what will happen. But to her misfortune, she can only see the men praising each other and worse, and that's all that's going to happen in the next 10 minutes. Meanwhile, in one of the rooms, all the boys are gathered, and the doctor reveals that he was on a mission to protect the Crown Prince of the Republic of Abatha, who is probably now hiding in the hotel. The prince really was in hiding, but the leader of the invaders found him and used his skills to seduce him. Meanwhile, the girls were walking in the ducts until they fell in, because the ducts weren't designed for several people to walk around it. In the fall, a cabinet opened, revealing several photos of an idol who was once very well liked but got involved in a scandal and so disappeared. The girls go to confront the leader with the boys, and Honey reveals that she has discovered that the aim of the man who is doing all this is initially to kidnap the prince and ask for the return of his idol as a bargaining chip. The villain then reveals that this is exactly what he wants, and seeing that he's trapped because the girls can't be affected by his seduction. After all, he's not interested in women. The man uses his plan too by turning on a tap and spraying a viscous liquid all over the room. Just then, some strange men appear, sliding through the liquid, with the aim of knocking everyone out. Jane goes towards the leader, but he grabs her and pulls her away, after which he runs off. Jane realizes that there is a way to move around this slimy place, so she climbs on top of one of the men who was slipping around and goes after the leader. On the terrace, the leader of all these men says that his plan has been completed and tries to kill himself as a way of protecting his allies. But James saves him by grabbing his arm before he falls. After being saved, he asks her if she wanted him to live, but in fact she only saved him because of his luxury dinner voucher, which when they fought ended up in his body. Yes, this is a very confusing episode. At the agency, old Ogasuki is with a scientist, who reveals that it is impossible to activate someone's inactive power. Ogasuki thanks him for his great contribution to research, but then stabs him in the back and starts laughing like a maniac. This brings us to episode 6, and we see a girl called Chio. She is a famous artist with synesthesia, which is a neurological condition that causes people to perceive the world through several senses at the same time. She has entered into a collaboration with a famous Hollywood director. However, a little later in his dressing room, someone put a cloth over his mouth to put him to sleep. Afterwards, a famous man called the blonde and the doctor to talk about Chio's disappearance. After all, they've been friends since high school. They ask if the man has already warned the police about her disappearance, and the man says that she warned them that if anything happened to her, not to involve the police. He also says that the kidnapper has demanded that the collaboration between her and the famous director be cancelled, otherwise she will be killed. In front of the police station, the police are standing in front of the dead body of a superpower user. The dead person is missing his brain, and Honey, who is with Gatsuki and Artie, asks why the inspector doesn't ask for Nazer's help, since he's very intelligent. But Artie says he doesn't want to involve civilians in this. Honey believes he's just hiding something, but before they can start fighting, Gatsuki reminds Artie that he should take some time off, and he decides to do so. Meanwhile, Blondie and the doctor go to a famous writer and confront her, saying that she is a suspect in Chiyo's kidnapping. After all, as well as being friends, she could be jealous of her contract with that director, but the woman says she has nothing to do with it, and the blonde, wanting to find the missing girl, doesn't give up on her and decides to stay close to the woman for a while. Meanwhile, Artie goes to a cemetery with some flowers and finds Nazer there, and after praying at the grave, he realizes that some friends had already passed there, and he can even tell who it was because of the souvenirs left behind, like a girl's magazine that the blonde certainly left. However, they are surprised by an exotic flower left there, and wonder who left it. But in any case, Artie says that his little brother would be very happy with so many gifts. Leaving the cemetery, Artie calls Nazer to eat some pancakes, but Nazer says he's busy and that he's realized that Artie is hiding something from him, but he doesn't insist that Artie tell him, and leaves the place running. At the cafe, Nazer ends up meeting Terrell, a famous television personality, who says he's there to arrange a job for the Ramatora. At Tio's friend's house, the blonde gets a call, so he has to leave quickly, leaving the doctor with her. The woman then tells the doctor that she actually admires Tio, although she still envies her, because even though she hasn't sold as much of her work, her friend's works are still wonderful. The doctor says he understands her, and says he feels something similar, but that blonde boy destroyed it in the past. A while later, in the parking lot, the doctor and Tio's friend Misty find blood on the ground next to the blonde's broken glasses. Just then, someone calls the doctor, saying that if he wants his partner back, he must take Misty to a certain place. The man gives the address, but in the background the doctor hears someone talking about sales profits first, so he understands that this suspect is in Tio's manager's building. They go to Tio's manager's office, and there, looking at Misty's drawings, the doctor discovers that the real target was her. So he realizes that the manager's plan was to kidnap Misty, put the blame on Tio, and thus end her contract with the director, so that Misty could sign the contract with him. Somewhere Tio sees the blonde tied up next to her, and in the car in which the doctor and Misty are riding, she asks if the blonde is going to die, and the doctor replies that he promised never to die, because since he was a boy the doctor has had the ability to see the illnesses of others, and this frightened the others, who called them the Prophet of Doom. However, one day the blonde went to him, saying that this whole Prophet of Doom thing was nonsense. But the moment the doctor looked at him, he realized that the boy had an incurable disease, so he said that the boy would die. However, the blonde promised that he wouldn't die, and bet the doctor that if he didn't die, it would be the doctor who had to die first. A few days later, the blonde underwent surgery, but due to his great will to live, a miracle happened, and he managed to come out alive, and it was exactly on that day that the blonde killed the false prophet. Meanwhile, the blonde was telling Tio the same story, saying that he couldn't die now, so he grabbed some power cables with his teeth, creating a wave of energy so big that it went up into the sky. And this caught the doctor's attention, and he went in his direction. He quickly arrives at the shed where he is, finally finding the blonde. But at that moment the manager arrives on the scene and reveals that he wanted the contract for Misty because her works sell more, and if it sells more it's more profit. Misty tells him that it's not all about sales, but he doesn't want to listen, so he rips off his own shirt, and suddenly his body turns all metallic. Using a super hardening power, he starts a fight against the doctor, and Misty acts bravely, untying the others. The doctor, wearing his blonde gloves, hits his enemy hard, but he doesn't do any damage, as the manager seems to have absorbed everything. The blonde tries to electrocute him, but he doesn't succeed either. Shio then says blue and yellow, and for some reason the doctor and the blonde understand, so they combine their powers, with the blonde electrocuting the doctor and sending his power into his glove. The doctor then punches the manager, finally overcoming his defense and beating him. After after the manager takes a good punch, he runs and gets into a speedboat to escape, but Murasaki and Nice arrive on the scene. Murasaki grabs an anchor and starts spinning, telling Nice to hold on, and when he does, Murasaki shoots him towards the speedboat, allowing Nice to fall exactly on top of the manager. After that, the doctor bandages the blonde's head, saying he won't let him die anytime soon, and Nice returns with the speedboat, bringing the manager. In the end, Torao, the person who warned Murasaki and Nice about the manager's plans, says that his manager overheard his plan, so he asked for help from someone other than the police. Kiroi complains that he borrowed the power for nothing, so Nice asks him where he got it. Finally, Nice goes to Art to talk about the serial killer, Muro, the murderer. After being captured by Nice, the manager named Kiroi decides to collaborate with the Hamatora and explains how he borrowed his power. He says he was surfing the internet, and when he clicked on a link, he saw his name on a page. From then on, various instructions appeared, promising him power if he fulfilled them. He obeyed what he was told, because he was afraid that they might reveal what he did with his friends, those secret Discord things, until one day he was drugged with something in his drink and passed out. Waking up later with his power, Nice, who was talking to Art, says that recently, incidents of people using superpowers, even though they weren't born with them, have been happening much more frequently. Art realizes that Nice is very intelligent, so Art says that the police are doing their best, seeking the testimony of those involved in the case, and those who know them, and what they have discovered is that none of those involved know who it was that turned them into superpower users, meaning that the suspect in this case is very careful. Art then asks Nice how he found out that the suspect was moral. Nice says that since this guy is someone who is distributing superpowers, he must be someone who knows a lot about it, meaning that he narrowed his search to the researchers at the Superpowers Agency. But since who they are looking for is doing it, he would hardly be an active researcher, and so he filtered his search even more to those who left the agency without explanation. Art says that even then it wasn't enough to come up with just one name, and Art replies that in this case it was more of a guess. But seeing Art's reaction, Nice was able to prove whether he was right or not. Art is once again impressed by Nice's intelligence. Meanwhile, in a kind of laboratory, Morale goes to some capsules that have brains inside, and looking at the capsule in the center, he says he's honored to meet him because his ability is too rare to stand there, so we discover that the brain in front of him was that of the bearer of a forbidden superpower. Returning to Art and Nice, Art tells Nice not to get involved in this anymore, and Nice asks him if everything is alright. But before Art can answer, a policeman comes up to him saying that he needs to see something. Art and Nice go to the scene of a crime, which was the laboratory of the past scene, and the center capsule was broken. Kashuk says that someone stole a special specimen from someone who had a forbidden superpower. Nice, while analyzing the scene, says that Art had commented that all the serial killer's victims were carriers of superpowers who ended up having their brains removed. In other words, he now believes that human brains are the source that has given ordinary people superpowers. So this crime scene is now connected to Morale. Art, a little tense, asks all the police stations to look for Morale, but Nice stops him, saying that Morale is certainly wearing disguises, because he's not just any foolish enemy. Art gets angry with Nice and shouts that it's none of his business. Nice is surprised. After all, Art is too calm to get nervous like that, and Art, after apologizing, just says that Nice should avoid getting too involved. After all, this is a case for the police to solve, so he leaves to get an elevator, while he sends a policeman to call Honair and Tree. Now, in the usual cafeteria, the depressed Nice says that Art was angry with him, and the master says that if someone as calm as Art is angry, it's because Nice did something that made him very angry. Hajime gives Nice a piece of meat, trying to console him, and Murasaki says that frogs should crawl on the ground, and can only try to jump once in a while, and asks Nice who knows what they think when they see birds dancing in the sky, thus making an analogy to what Art feels, literally saying that Nice is far superior to Art, and that must have probably annoyed him. Nice asks Murasaki to talk to him like a human being, but at that moment someone calls and Kaneko answers. And after the call she says she has urgent work for everyone. Now in a meeting room, Honair, Tree, Art and Gatsuki discuss how Moro got into a maximum security prison, and Gatsuki says that it must be like Nice says. he must be disguising himself to walk around unnoticed. Art says that only police officers with prior authorization can enter the place, but on the day of the incident all the security records were erased, meaning that Moral is disguising himself as one of them in order to escape. Honair says that security has 2 levels of verification, fingerprints and retinal scanning, meaning that a simple disguise wouldn't be enough. Art comments that he doesn't know much about that brain's superpower, but since that brain was being preserved, that power must be very important. Sighing, he gets up and tells them to rest for a while. After all, they won't be able to stand it if they work non-stop. After this meeting, Honair goes to talk to Gatsuki in a room. Gatsuki says that Art is carrying a very heavy burden on his own, and Honair asks if that's why he called her there, and he says that she must know Art very well. After all, they've known each other since academy days, and the old man is still nicknamed the girl with the beautiful body, and Honair asks him not to call her that, and then he explains that they all went to the academy in the same room, although they joined at different times, and that's why they didn't spend much time together. Gatsuki says he remembers very well the doctor and Blondie leaving halfway through the course, and Honair confirms this, saying that the agency discovered a physical defect in Blondie, which forced him to leave, and the doctor ended up leaving together. Gatsuki then asks if only she and Art stayed until graduation, and Honair confirms, although Art's circumstances for staying at the academy were completely different. After all, Art was the only one who failed to activate his minimum ability. However, thanks to his great effort and dedication, he was the only one and the first to complete the faculty academy without awakening a skill. Meanwhile, Tree goes up to Art and asks him to do something. On the other side of the screen, Nice and Murasaki are talking to Koichi, asking him if he has had sex with various celebrities. The man says yes, so the pair tell him that they have a request from his fans, who are members of a victims association. They want an apology from him. Koichi scoffs and asks why it's his fault these girls approached him. He says that they looked like an easy snack, and that's why he devoured them. He gets up from the table and tells the pair to tell their customers that he didn't do anything wrong and that he won't apologize to anyone. After all, the girls wanted to give it to him. He then dumped a juice on the head of one of the 4 boys at the next table, saying that if they're jealous, they should learn to seduce girls instead of trying to do something against him. Before he left, Nice went up to him and handed him his card in case he changed his mind. On the other side of the screen, Tree and Art are sparring together. Tree throws Art to the ground with a blow, and Art says he doesn't take it easy. Tree starts to say while he's fighting that Art wanted to be like the others, at least in terms of physical ability, and that's why he came to ask him to be his master. And at first Tree thought he was going to give up his training, but it was the master himself who ended up giving up, because Art is very persistent, even though he's very weak. He kept training and pushing himself, evolving more and more, and as soon as he finishes his speech, Art hits him, throwing him to the ground, and Tree congratulates him. After all this, Art goes to his car with his master, and says that he feels lighter now, and thanks his master for the training, and Tree says that today's training was based on a manga, and Art says that now he'll have to read that manga too. Tree asks what he'll do, and Art says he'll go back to the basics of his job. Tree asks him not to overdo it, and Art says he'll try. Meanwhile, Nice and Murasaki are together, and while Nice is looking at some birds, Murasaki says he's going to guess what he's thinking, and he's right, saying it's about morale, and the case Art is trying to solve. Murasaki goes on to say that he doesn't understand why he's so focused on that, and adds that Nice should put himself in Art's shoes a little. Nice says that maybe there's something missing in this whole case, and that it's not that he doesn't trust Art, but he's much smarter and can solve this case much faster. Meanwhile, Art is at a crime scene of a house that has caught fire and sees a bed of creepy flowers that have escaped the flame. Art realizes that they are black cosmos, which have recently been cut down. Seeing this, he quickly runs to the cemetery, finding a Moral there in front of the grave, holding a bouquet of black cosmos, and telling Art that he was waiting for him. Art pulls out his pistol and points it at him, and Morale says he'd rather he didn't keep brandishing old instruments where death sleep. Art confronts him, asking if he's the one creating temporary superpower holders, and also asks him why he's doing it. Morale says that he is seeking equality for all, and Art says that this makes no sense. And if it is for equality, why did he steal a forbidden superpower? And Morale says that he also did it for equality. After all, he wants to save someone from loneliness, and to save that person, he needs a lot of power. Art says that this is a lie, because someone like him could not save anyone, and Morale reveals that this person is Nice. Meanwhile, Nice talks on the phone to Creech, who is locked in a bathroom hiding hiding from armed guys who want to hurt him. Nice asks him to wait, because he'll be there soon to help him. Returning to Morale and Art, the villain of the story admits that he met Nice a decade ago, and as soon as he looked at him, he realized that this boy was doomed to loneliness, because he was too good at everything he did, and because he was so superior to everyone, he was doomed to loneliness. He says that the strong suffer from loneliness because they are unique, and so the weeping Moral says that he wants to save Nice from this loneliness by becoming someone equal to him or even superior. He says it's not easy to achieve this. After all, Nice is above everyone else. While Morale is making his speech, Nice uses his power and teleports to the guys who were beating up Creech, kicking one of them. Art, after listening to everything the Moral said, says that he won't let someone like this man get close to Nice, and that as the boy's friend, he will protect him from the Moral. Morale laughs as he wipes his hand across his face, changing his appearance to that of Gatsuki. Art, surprised, shoots at Morale, but the villain dodges and advances on him, throwing him against a tree and then pinning him against a tomb. On the other side of the screen, Nice finishes defeating the men who were attacking Creech, and being very angry, Creech grabs one of the attackers by the collar. The two start arguing about celebrities, with one man saying that Creech should apologize because he hurt the girls, and Creech saying that it's not his fault that he got with them, and that those guys were just jealous of him. Nice, seeing that they were both wrong, punches Creech in the face and kicks a chair towards the other man. He leaves, telling Murasaki that he's going to help Art, while Morale is holding Art against the tomb, saying that without a power, he'll never be like Nice. However, he can change that, so he offers Art a superpower, but Art says he doesn't need a power to be someone's friend. At that moment, Moral pierces the inspector's rib with a knife and stands up saying that the black Cosmo flowers mean envy and despair. He throws one of these roses at Art, at which point Art's cell phone rings. It's Nice calling him. Art tries to crawl to the phone, but before he can touch it, Moral steps on it and apologizes. After all, he just invented the meaning of roses. But in return, he promises to tell Art something. So he says something in Art's ear, then gets up and finishes the boy off with a few shots, leaving him there next to the ringing phone. After killing Art, Moral answers his cell phone while using his power to speak in the inspector's voice. Nice asks if everything is alright, and Moral, pretending to be Art, says yes, but that he's busy right now, so he hangs up. A while later, a woman arrived at the place, and Moral asked her to take care of Art's body. Now, at the usual coffee shop, Murasaki asks for a towel to pick up Nice in the rain. The master plays what he asked, while saying that this is a good excuse not to work. But Kaneko says that this won't happen, as they have a business trip in Okinawa. On the plane, Theo shouts that Nice is too strong at the card game, but Murasaki tells them to keep it down. After all, they're not the only ones in there. Ray says that Murasaki disappeared from the school out of the blue, and suddenly appeared here, but he's too handsome, so no problem. Theo asks why the Hamatora people are on a plane, and Nice replies that they are going to do a job in Okinawa. Theo asks if it isn't normally the client who pays for transportation, and Nice says that if the plane is public they spend less, so there's more money for them, and that it was Kaneko's idea. While in Okinawa, the pair talk to their contractor, who shows them a type of energy drink and calls it Ideal. Apparently, those who drink it fall into an eternal sleep. They've already tried researching the drink, but there's nothing actively working, and since he's heard of superpowers, he believes that someone with superpowers must be involved with these sleep cases. He says that the suspect behind all this is Hiragi Suichi, his older brother, and he wants the Hamatora to hand his brother over to him, not the police. Meanwhile, brothers Theo and Ray are having fun on Okinawa Beach, until several cliché delinquents arrive and tell them both to get out of there, because they're from the school in Yokohama, where there's a very polluted sea, and so they're not welcome there. A man in the background asks why he talks like a bad manga villain, but is hit in the face with a bitter melon. Theo says that this is a very silly reason to expel someone, and that using violence is wrong. The man then says that to be fair, they'll have a competition, and says that Theo will be able to choose who will represent him, but whoever loses will never be able to set foot on this beach again, and so Theo agrees. After all, they have Nice. Meanwhile, Nice is talking about food, and Murasaki says that they should focus on finding the drug dealer, and Nice says that he's not here, because he wouldn't stay in such a public place. So they go to the bad guy to ask where people who like to be alone would go, and he tells them that the perfect place is inside an internet cafe. At the internet cafe, someone offers Theo entry to paradise, and so they are lured away by the drug dealer. In the car, Nice explains to Murasaki that the profile of the people who have used this drug is that of people who want to escape from reality, which is why he used Theo as bait for the dealer. It turns out that Theo has an aura of someone someone who isn't doing very well at school. They finally get to where the suspect is, but when they see him sleeping, they realize they're too late. On the front of the switch, there are some drawings in which he imagines himself with powers and defeating various enemies, but in the end, he is surrounded by a harem of girls for being too strong. His younger brother asks why Switch would use his power on himself, and Murasaki explains that unlike him, Switch hasn't made it in life. Nice goes into his computer and finds the same message that Mural sends to his victim. Out of the blue, Theo calls Nice to talk to him, and out of the blue, he asks Nice to help him in the competition, but Nice refuses. However, when he saw on the flyer that the winner would get a year's worth of bitter melon and hamburger risole, he accepted. Just then, the delinquents arrive at the same place, and their leader tells them that he knew Theo would seek outside help, which is why he also sought help, hiring the doctor, Blondie, Honen, and Tree. Murasaki is next to Switch, who is asleep, and says that he needs him. After all, only the owner of the superpower that made people sleep can make them wake up. He goes on to say that he understands that he wants to escape from cruel reality, and that he's been there too. After all, he was always number one until Nice came along. Since then, his life has been all about losing. Now the competition is about to begin, and the host of this event was surprisingly evil. The Informer. He explains the stages of the event: swimming, cycling, and then running, but at the end, all the participants will face each other with bitter melon. So he starts the competition by shooting upwards, and Honen pretends that her bikini has fallen off to distract everyone, and gets out in front of everyone, along with Tree, and after everyone gets into the water, the blonde takes out his stun gun with the intention of electrocuting everyone, but Tree moves in on him to stop him from doing it, and when they were about to start a fight, the presenter says that the blonde is eliminated, as it is forbidden to bring a dog to the competition. Tree defends himself by saying that he's more like a cat, so the presenter also eliminates him for being scary. In cycling, the doctor is also eliminated, as he abandoned the race to help a boy who was injured. Honen gets to the end and asks where her reward is, and the presenter tells her that she should now wait for the final stage, which will be the fight with Bitter Melon. She asks why she has run so far, and he replies that those who arrive first can rest by eating bitter melons. Now that everyone had arrived, they could start the death struggle with Bitter Melon. The leader of the delinquents is the first to be eliminated because he has eaten too much bitter melon. Nice quickly takes down several opponents until he meets Ronin, who says she can't be defeated as long as she has her tablet, which can predict the future. Nice asks her if her tablet hasn't been broken by the sea, and she says that her device is waterproof. But at that moment, the tablet malfunctions because it is not salt waterproof. Nice uses his opportunity to defeat him. At this point, Murasaki advances, defeating many people, leaving only Nice and him. Nice asks why he's there, and Murasaki says he wants to be number one. He says that since there are so many people watching, they can't use their powers. The two then engage in a physical fight, and Nice dodges Murasaki's blows several times, and quickly drives a kick into Murasaki's face. Murasaki is unperturbed and smiles, so their fight continues, with Murasaki having a hard time because of Nice's speed. However, he doesn't want to be left behind and keeps trying. Meanwhile, Chuichi, in a wheelchair carried by his younger brother, cries as he says that he understands now. Although life is difficult, he can't give up. Returning to Nice, he quickly punches Murasaki in the stomach, defeating him with the last blow and thus being the victor. Suddenly, some people kidnap Chuichi and flee in a car. The man driving says he's glad Chuichi has woken up because now they can continue making money by selling drugs. But then Nice comes after them on a bicycle. He quickly uses his power to teleport to them, breaking through the car window and hitting the driver, causing the car to swerve and fall into the sea. Murasaki, who followed him, picks up the car from the bottom of the sea and puts it on the beach, saying that it's not nice to throw garbage in the sea. After all this, while Chuichi and his brother are arguing, Murasaki says that this was very reckless, and asks what might have happened if he hadn't come, and Nice says that nothing bad will happen to him there. Then Murasaki says that next time he won't lose. In the end, Theo makes friends with the delinquents, and Nice goes to find a present for Art. At the police station, Moral disguised as Art is leaving. Gatsuki asks why he's leaving early, and Art says that unlike an old man, he's still young, and that's why he's going off somewhere hidden. Moral returns to his normal appearance, and a woman tells him that the preparations for the surgery are ready. Then Moral says that soon everyone will be reborn, saying this in the midst of several people on stretchers. After that, we see that everyone is in the same cafeteria again. They are talking about the certificate from the minimum agency, which in this case is the certificate that allows them to use power in public. However, they have been abusing this certificate and using their powers in front of other people. people, so the existence of people with superpowers has become increasingly public. Nice says that as an apology, he's going to take some things he brought back from the trip as a present for Art, because they always cover them up. At the agency, old Gatsuki stopped him from seeing Art, saying that he was too busy and that he would deliver the presents himself. Nice starts teasing him, saying that the old man looks like he would eat his presents. And for his lack of respect, old Gatsuki asks if he wants to be arrested. Back at the cafe, Nice says he hasn't been able to see Art again, and Kaneko realizes that he's been half arrested, as there's a handcuff on his left arm. Honey, who was sitting nearby, says it looks like Art is going to make some big changes to the team in charge of the serial murder case, which is why she and Tree have been told to stay out of it until the decisions have been made. The doctor asks where Tree is, and she says she doesn't know. In the meantime, Tree goes to an orphanage, where he is happily received by the children and presents are given to them. Meanwhile, somewhere, a man crumples up an old photo of Tree. Suddenly, we see in the past that Tree was in the army, or something similar, and he always got on well with the children. However, on a mission in which he planted a bomb in a building, when he was leaving after planting the bomb, he saw the same children surrounded by enemy soldiers. And so, without thinking twice, he recklessly advanced towards them, trying to save them from the bomb that exploded at that very moment. So he woke up frightened from this dream, while his cell phone rang, Honey calling him. Now in Art's office are Honey and Tree, and the girl complains to Art about taking them off the case of the mural, and Art says it's for their own good. After all, the mural only attacks those with superpowers. Tree calms his companion down, saying that it was Art who called them there, so he could let them go too. Honey, still upset, leaves the room saying that he shouldn't expect her to cooperate much, and Tree follows her. After that, someone calls Art, and when he answers, she reveals that she is the woman from before who was helping him, and she tells him that Nice is in her flower shop. Nice is talking to an attendant, the mural's ally, but he doesn't know it yet. After that, he asks if she has any flowers for someone who likes hamburgers, and the attendant tells him that he'd better give them a hamburger right away. Nice then gets straight to the point, saying that he came here because of their website, which has a good review and advertisement, citing that when people write on other people's websites that they're getting married, a pop-up window from the store appears, and that's a very good job by some programmer. Nice then asks the clerk if she knows how to program, and the clerk says she knows the basic, but Nice says maybe not, saying that she could well be a super hacker. He then says that this is a joke and leaves. Outside the flower shop, Nice gets into a car where Murasaki is waiting for him. Murasaki asks what this is all about, and Nice says that for those messages to appear on the internet, the mural would need to find those people first, and so he is more focused on finding the person who is doing this work online. Murasaki asks if he's achieved what he wanted, and Nice says he's on the right track. They drive away, and the girl who picked him up calls the mural, explaining the whole situation. The mural then tells her that she shouldn't go to his lab for a while, and she agrees. And while the mural was talking to her, someone knocks on the door. He quickly turns his appearance to Art and lets the person in. Just like that, a man in a cap enters the room, being the same man who crumpled Tree's photo. Meanwhile, in the cafe, the Kaneka is trying to kick out a man who wanted the service of the Esramatura. Nice asks why, and the client says he wants to show them dark rumors about Tree. At the same time, an article in the newspaper about an orphanage run by a former mercenary is shown to everyone. The former mercenary had the name Blood Beast, and it was Tree himself. On an interview program, the presenter says that the guest is a military news commentator and a former mercenary. The presenter asks the man about Tree, and the man explains that his name, the Blood Beast, came about because of his love of killing. After all, Tree loved to kill in war. The coffee master says that they are attacking Tree, and Ronin reveals that she didn't know about this orphanage. At the same time, Kaneko hands Nice a drink and says she's angry about the customer. Murasaki asks her why she's angry, and she says she's annoyed that they accepted a malicious request from someone who wants to slander a friend of theirs. Nice says he found it interesting, which is why he wants to dig deeper into the story. After all, no one knows what Tree is really doing, whether he's selling the children or just making some money. This infuriates Ronin, who grabs him by the collar, but Nice pulls his hand away, saying that he is free to choose whatever job he wants. Nice and Murasaki go to Mao to ask about the origin of the children, so the man tells them that they are all war orphans. Nice says that Tree must have adopted all the children of those he killed in the war, and Mao confirms this. Murasaki asks if this is a way of redeeming himself, but no one knows the truth. At the orphanage, the press are waiting for information. Just then, some delivery boys come by, saying that they need to deliver some fruit. As they enter the orphanage, they reveal themselves to be Blondie and the doctor in disguise, who, as well as delivering the fruit, have brought Ronan hidden in one of the boxes. Ronan reveals herself as they're leaving, and she asks Tree why he's hiding something good that he's doing. But Tree says that it's not true, and because of the tone in which he speaks, one of the children throws a fruit in Ronan's face, while other children get in front of Tree, saying that they'll fight to protect and take revenge if they're dishonored. Meanwhile, Knight theorizes with Murasaki about Tree's orphanage, which must be for punishment and not redemption, since the name of the orphanage is Pena, which in Latin means punishment. Ronan and Tree go to the office to talk, and he explains that he has taken in the children and brought them up so that they can murder him in the future, so that they can avenge their families, because it was he who killed their parents. Ronan is disgusted that he is raising murderers, but not only because of this, but also because of Tree's desire to die because of the guilt he feels. She wonders if he has forgotten the promise he made to her, that he would protect her forever. She wonders if it is all a lie. Having said that, she leaves the room and goes to the child who threw a fruit in her face, and tells the little child that fruit is not for throwing at others, and that her warm hands are not for hurting someone, because hurting someone else is wrong. Tree sees her doing this, and Ronan explains that she won't let him raise murderers, so she'll help raise these children, making sure they become brilliant adults in the future. Not only that, but she says that Tree's punishment must be to live, even if he lives in pain. Just then, some men break into an orphanage, but Nice and Murasaki deal with them and quickly find Tree and Ronan. The villain of this story, Masayoshi, also appears and reveals that he has the power to control metal. He reveals that his greatest inspiration in life is Tree, and his fame as the Blood Beast. He doesn't like the fact that Tree is helping children, so he wants to kill all the children to bring back Tree's old reputation as the greatest bloodthirsty beast of all time. Just then, Ronan and Murasaki hear the children screaming and go to help them, while Tree and Nice stand against Masayoshi. Tree advances against him, but the villain stops him by controlling an iron bar with his power. However, Nice uses his power to teleport to him and punch him in the face, allowing Tree to capture the villain. Meanwhile, Murasaki was taking down the other enemies, and Ronan was helping the children. Masayoshi, seeing that he has nothing left to do, activates his Plan B, pressing a button that makes his allies' vests catch fire, causing the orphanage to start burning. Nice climbs on top of him to try and help the children, while Tree gets angry and hangs the villain, who smiles and says that this is the bloody beast he knows. At that moment, Tree remembers his past and a scene in which he was crying, and the child Ronan came up to him and squeezed his hand, and because of this memory, he comes to his senses and throws the man against the wall. Immediately afterward, he activates his superpower, which makes him much stronger. In this way, he makes his way through the walls to the children, grabs them and exits through the roof of the orphanage. Roaring like a beast, the press look on, while that Hamatora customer takes pictures of Tree in that form. Nice goes up to this customer, asking if he now has what he wants, and the man tells him that he doesn't need the Hamatora anymore, as he now has the photos. Nice takes his camera and throws it on the ground, breaking it. He takes the man's money and throws it on the floor too, and says he's paying for the broken camera. Meanwhile, at the Superpowers Agency, Moral sees the fire from afar, and says it's time to send the signal for the revolution and make humans powerful. As he says this, several hooded people with a black flower on their clothes come out of the agency. This brings us to the next episode, where we discover that it was Moral disguised as Art who gave the villain from last episode the power to control iron, as well as the car and money to hire the journalist. He used this as a distraction to free those people. All these people have powers, and they're going to go around killing people. Then the scene cuts to Nice walking in the square with Murasaki, Honan, and Tree. Tree is on a leash, being carried by Honan. All this so as not to scare people and look more like a puppy. Just then, a commotion breaks out and Takahiro suddenly appears, revealing that he's not dead. He apologizes for the commotion in a very thin voice. Meanwhile, the news is going off about minimum holders, who in this case are people who have superpowers, and the person spreading this information on the internet is that hacker who works for Moral. The news channels say literally everything about the existence of the Academy of Facultas, the agency that controls the minimums, and reveal that the police and the government know everything. In the Master's Cafe, the doctor says that the documents on the internet are the real ones, and that these documents list all the graduates of the Faculty Academy, showing even those who didn't graduate. Apparently, even the agency is surprised by the extent extent of the information exposed. Takahiro was inside the cafeteria together, and for some reason he didn't want to leave the floor. Continuing, on his knees, he explains that it was those people in black coats who got him out of prison and asks the Hamatora for a favor, saying that he wants to get his body back to normal. After all, he wants to live a normal life and be loved by people. Nasi says he won't accept the job and leaves. Murasaki follows him without understanding, and Hajime for some reason keeps looking at Takahiro strangely. Meanwhile, Honen is trying to get a new place for the children in the orphanage, since the original orphanage burned down, but the attendant says she can't, and cites a list of reasons why she can't allow them to get a house, saying that they can't rent to people with superpower. Honen leaves indignantly, and finds Tui waiting at the door. She asks why he isn't wearing a disguise, and he says that he doesn't deserve to wear one. After all, it's his fault that all this is happening. Honen kicks him and tells him to stop. She hands him the disguise again, which is just a pair of glasses with a nose, and after hearing her words, he decides to wear it again. Now on the streets there are various protests against those with superpowers, with people wanting to expel them, saying that they think they are superior. Nasi was standing nearby listening, at which point Murasaki caught up with him and asked why he had refused the job. Nasi then explains that Tui's problem and those people in black are all the work of morale, and that's why he's not interested in Takahiro's case. Meanwhile, Hajime continues to look at Takahiro strangely while eating her pudding until the blonde eats some of her food and then says that she's getting fat. This makes her not want to eat the pudding anymore. Not only that, but she goes to Takahiro and says she'll help him lose weight with her. Just then, Murasaki arrives and says he'll help them. On the streets, various people are interviewed, from extras to some of the main characters, with each one having different opinions, until it's Nasi's turn to be interviewed, and he says that having power is no big deal, and that people shouldn't worry so much about it. After all, you can live peacefully without having a power. That all this bickering, prejudice, and discussion just annoys him. Morale says it's time for the next phase, and says he wants to become the new messiah of this world, and so the hacker makes all those who speak ill of those with superpowers have their address revealed in the very post they made, causing the power holders themselves to go after them and take revenge. Morale wants to create chaos for the weakest, saying that the weak should realize how useless they are so that they can come to him and ask for power. And this starts to work in a way, as people start rioting in the streets, destroying things. The next day, the newspaper talks about the conflict that happened the night before. So the master tells Kaneko that it's better to be careful about contacting people, as it's hard to know who is an ally or an enemy. Kaneko says she's worried about Hajime, who is out jogging with Takahiro and Murasaki to lose weight. Meanwhile, two youngsters at school are discriminating against another youngster because of his father, who is a zookeeper with superpowers. But at that moment, Chiyo arrives and disappears with the boy who was being attacked. At the same time, several normal people stand in front of Honen and Tui, saying that they've gotten permission from the authorities to take the children away. After all, they can't stay with super-powered Zoan, so they take the children away by force, which makes Honen and Tui furious. Meanwhile, Lurio and the doctor are on the streets looking for Chiyo, who was being attacked by her opponent. In the end, they find her all bruised up in an alley, and they get very angry. At the same time, Nice goes to the agency to look for Art, but doesn't find her in his office. He asks Gatsuki where Art is, and the old man asks if they had actually arranged to meet, and Nice says yes. Nice then asks if Art was alone, and Gatsuki says yes, but Nice denies it because there's a glass of black coffee in his living room, and Art doesn't drink that kind of coffee. What's more, there was a black flower in a vase nearby, which made him even more suspicious, as this is the same flower that is linked to all the cases. As a result, Nice goes to the agency's terrace and meets Moral, who says he's been looking forward to this meeting for a long time. Nice and Moral go to Master's cafeteria and sit down at the counter. Moral asks Master if they know each other, but Master says no. Kaneko asks who he is, and Nice says he's the mastermind behind everything bad that's happening. Meanwhile, Hajime and Takahiro are doing sit-ups, while Murasaki takes out his stress on some people nearby in the street. Meanwhile, Moral asks Nice how he found him, and Nice reveals that he used Honen's ability, which sees up to 10 minutes into the future. He searches the entire agency and manages to find him on the terrace. Nice asks what he did with Art, but Moral doesn't answer directly, but just changes his appearance to Art's and says that he used his power to to infiltrate them. While he was talking, he put his hand in front of Kaniko's face, doing something that will be important in the future. Nice says he already knows what he's going to do with it, but first he wants the man to tell him everything. So Moral does just that, saying that he takes the essence of the superpower from people's brains, and so he can activate the same power as a stolen brain in a brain that has an inactive power. In this way, with just one brain, Moral can create 24 superpower users. Nice then asks if his goal is to create a society where everyone has powers, and Moral affirms this. He also says that he only gave power to those who wanted it, and it's not his fault how they use their powers. Moral says that he feels sorry for the weak, which is why he wants to make everyone strong. But Kaniko disagrees and says that because of him the city is in chaos. However, Nice agrees with Moral, saying that everyone is free to do what they want, and that they should use their powers as they wish. The excited Moral says that Nice is exactly what he thought he would be. Meanwhile, the doctor is looking after his aunt. While some people outside the building break into some cars, the blonde asks his friend if he wants to go outside and beat everyone up, but the doctor refuses. In an apartment, Honan asks Tree what he's going to do about the police's request to contain the riot, and he goes on to say that under normal circumstances he would do something, but it all seems too strange. Returning to the cafe, Moral says that just like the weak, the strong also have salvation, which is why he wants to save Nice from loneliness. Moral goes on to say that he's the only one who understands Nice, and that's why he wants to protect him by being like him, so that he doesn't feel alone. Nice laughs a lot and says he didn't ask for his help. Meanwhile, Murasaki continues to fight with a crowd of people. He is clearly irritated by this situation, and fights shouting, asking why they can't just live their lives without worrying about their powers. Takahiro, who has been watching him fight, realizes that even with powers, he is still weak, and he wishes that one day he could be as strong as Murasaki. On the other side of the screen, Nice keeps saying that he didn't ask Moral to save him, and that his definition of whether someone is stronger or weaker annoys him. Nice tells him to finish his coffee right away, and Moral quickly does so, getting up and preparing to leave. But before he goes, he tells him that there's going to be a show. In the streets, a battle tank begins to attack the civic center, causing people to run. Takahiro sees a flyer from his mother and gets worried. The tank arrives at the civic center, and Takahiro's mother tries to run away, but one of those people who has been given superpowers won't let her, revealing that she was their target. They complain that she keeps saying on television that they should all die, and since she wishes it for them, then they'll take her life. In the cafe, Moral says he has to go, but Nice says he won't let him leave. Meanwhile, Moral reveals that he has wrapped a line around Kaniko's neck, and if Nice tries to do anything against him, he will behead Kaniko. Nice says he'll make him pay, and asks Moral not to forget it. In the civic center, Takahiro's mother is running from the people who are chasing her, until a battle tank enters the place where they are, causing her to freak out and fall to the ground. Everyone prepares to take revenge on her, but just as the tank is about to shoot her, Takahiro comes pushing in, making the shot miss. Takahiro tries to go to his mother to help, but the man with the power to make an item hot won't let him, hitting him on the head and knocking him to the ground. He is surrounded, but Hajime arrives and kicks two of them. Just then Murasaki appears, telling her not to go ahead alone. The tank prepares to fire, while all the enemies advance on the woman again, but Takahiro stops them, taking a knife blow to the back and falling next to his mother. His mother is frightened by his appearance. After all, the boy is very ugly, but Takahiro still gets up and says he's going to protect his mother. He looks at the tank and starts screaming. His rage makes his body transform, increasing its size and becoming more monstrous. In this way, he finishes off everyone there, including the tank that tried to fire a cannonball at him, but he held it back and sent it flying. As he fights, he finally feels that he has become strong and is protecting his mother, even if he has become a monster to do so. After destroying the tank, the man with the sledgehammer hits him on the head, seriously injuring him. But before anything else happens, Nice uses his power to teleport to him and take him out with one punch. Takahiro's mother hugs her son on the floor, crying, and says she is very proud of him. Moriwaki, watching from afar on TV, tears up as he says he understands Takahiro, saying that now that his power is gone and he'll be back to normal, he'll suffer a lot of humiliation, and that's why he's going to save him. Having said that, he presses a button on his cell phone, and Takahiro's chest explodes, causing blood to rain down on everyone in the room. Takehiro's mother despairs, cries and screams. Hajime does the same, and Nice gets extremely angry with Moriwaki. Hajime gets a little out of control and starts repeating over and over that she's hungry. Her eyes turn red, and one of the enemies gets up and tries to attack her, but she quickly throws him away and says again that she's hungry. Her power then runs out, and before she can fall to the ground, Kaneko arrives and holds her up. Moriwaki, on the street, says that the time has come and that he can't keep Nice waiting any longer. He then injects something into his neck while laughing like crazy. The scene then cuts to a young man waking up in a room. He reads a note that tells him to put his hands together, and as soon as he puts his hands together, his fingernails grow. The camera recorded this, and a television presenter says that it is now very easy to have a superpower. To get it, all you have to do is go to the place indicated. As a result, everyone in the city starts heading towards this place, and it is revealed that this was all the hackers doing. Not satisfied, she decides to attract even more attention so that people will acquire her powers. To do this, she sends female robots into the streets, which shoot metal balls at people, hurting them badly, which forces them to go after power. Honen, on top of a building, uses her tablet to locate the robots in advance, and knowing where they are going, she tells Blondie to wait there and defeat them quickly. Blondie and the doctor were doing it perfectly, but that power user from the first episode shows up and throws a car at the wall. The doctor gets angry with him and decides to confront him. After all, the man destroyed his car, which took him more than 10 years to erase. The doctor stays behind, and the blonde man steps forward to stop the robots. Honen and Tree were out on the streets, looking for the robots with their powers, until out of nowhere they were surrounded by some enemies. Tree takes it upon himself to protect her while she searches for the target. In the meantime, the police manage to find the hacker's house and arrest her. Nice and Murasaki arrive on a boat, where Moral is waiting for them, and while Murasaki takes care of the henchman, Nice steps forward to confront Moral. Nice says he'll put an end to it quickly, and Moral says it's time to take away his eternal loneliness by using his forbidden power. Nice puts on his headset and moves forward using his extremely fast movement power, but Moral suddenly disappears from in front of him instantly, appearing behind him and striking him several times. Nice falls to the ground and quickly understands Moral's ability. Even though he doesn't understand, Moral decides to explain, saying that he can teleport anywhere within 10 meters, but his power is not a simple teleport. In fact, it exists inside everything there or in nothing. He says that this is the power of God, something on a par with what Nice has, and that with this power he can equal Nice. Moral reveals to Nice that this ship is heading towards a transmission tower where Ribiki, an enemy Nice has already defeated, is. This man has the power to destroy the hearing of anyone who hears him shouting. Now he's trapped in that tower with several knives pointed at him, and Moral's plan is to broadcast that man's voice as he is stabbed on the cell phones of several people in the city. Originally, Ribiki's power was to blow people's heads off, but since he hasn't fully mastered his power, the most he can do is blow everyone's hearing out. And for Moral, this is a way of making the weak understand how weak they are. Now all he has to do is get close to the tower and press a button on his cell phone, and the only person who can stop him from doing that is Nice. Moral says that Nice will have to overcome a power as magnificent as his, and just the fact that he manages to leave Nice shaken makes Moral very happy, and to encourage Nice to go all out, he reveals that he was responsible for blowing up Targahiro. This infuriates Nice and he goes after Moral, but Moral teleports and kicks him, and then reveals that he also killed Art. Nice is really affected and goes for him, trying to attack him, but Moral keeps dodging with his teleportation power, and hits Nice again with several blows and throws him to the ground. He asks Nice how it feels to be frustrated and angry, how it feels to know you're going to lose. Just then, Murasaki arrives and throws an anchor at Moral, who teleports without difficulty and attacks Murasaki several times, all so quickly that it wasn't even possible to see. And after attacking him so many times, Murasaki falls on the platform next to Nice, saying that Nice shouldn't do what he wouldn't normally do, and that this revenge business is bullshit. Meanwhile, in the cafeteria, Hajime wakes up, and the master says he'll make her some breakfast. Although it's late at night, Hajime looks at the television worried about Nice, and the angry Nice tries to calm down and concentrate. He snaps his fingers several times. Meanwhile, all those that Nice once helped are watching the transmission that the helicopter is making from the boat where Nice is. Everyone then decides to send messages to him as a form of support. As he snapped his fingers, Nice felt his cell phone vibrate, which annoyed him, and he threw it into the sea, saying that he wanted to concentrate and couldn't see any messages. At this point he tells Moral that he's no hero and that he's always used his power for his own good, so he's going to finish Moral off because he wants to. Moral gets excited and calls him into the fight, and so the fight resumed, with Nice advancing towards him using his power, and Moral continuing to dodge with his teleport. But this time Nice was paying more attention, and used his power several times in succession, which allowed him to keep up with Moral until he managed to punch his enemy in the face, knocking him to the ground. Meanwhile, Murasaki turns the ship's rudder and says that this is the Nice he knows. Meanwhile, a boat leaves the docks heading for the ship. Moral rises from the wreckage, while very excited that Nice has made it through. But before he can do anything, he vomits a lot of blood, and realizes that he has reached his limit. Suddenly, Art enters the room saying that a human with 2 superpowers in one body wouldn't be able to withstand so much pressure. But Moral reveals that he knew it would happen. However, this time Art acts quickly and shoots Moral, knocking him out as he was weak. Nice says it's good that he's alive, but wonders if it was really necessary to shoot Moral. After all, he wouldn't be able to fight anymore. He approaches Moral's body and crouches down to get a closer look. Art then comes up behind him, puts his gun to Nice's head, and says he's sorry for the delay. Then the anime ends and all we hear is the sound of gunfire. If you want to watch the second season of the Hamatora anime, don't forget to like this video. Tell us what you think so far, and that's it. A big kiss to everyone, bye and see you in the next video. Yeah.